World War I, the bloodiest war of human history. Greetings, viewers. I'm sure you're curious as to why World War I in particular is noted as the bloodiest war that ever occurred. Wouldn't it make sense for that title to go to the more advanced World War II? Despite your ignorant preconceptions, that is not the case. In this documentary, we will explore the reasons why World War I was as casualty-plagued as it was. World War I is unique in terms of wars that have occurred in human history. Interestingly, armies of World War I used a combination of primitive war strategy and military technology. Specifically, the primary strategies were techniques developed during the 19th century. On the other hand, the military weaponry and technology were of that time period, developed during the 20th century. Popular offensive tactics included infantry, cavalry, and trench. All of these parties involved in the warfare utilized these tactics in an effort to be victorious.
Infantry tactics involved the use of foot soldiers in battle. Military commanders focused on using infantry for mass attacks with bayonets supported by cavalry and hardcore artillery. They didn't believe in a defensive approach as they felt a massive and rapid attack could not fail. France in particular relied on this strategy, so they sent soldiers to battlefields without tools to dig trenches. Leading commanders soon realized that this tactic sucked, leading to major casualties. Infantry attacks usually failed because the opposing side used poison gas and flamethrowers, which they were very susceptible to. Most of the time, armies were forced to retreat when they were attacked with heavy and rapid artillery, which caused heavy losses. One example is when France tried to break through the Western Front, a line of trenches that ran from the North Sea to the Swiss frontier, to attack the Germans with infantry. They failed in that endeavor in 1915, and by 1918, the Allies decided to use different strategies with new technology, tanks and aircrafts.
Trench warfare was a tactic used by the militants where opposing forces attack and defend from systems of trenches dug into the ground. They were used as protections from the other side, which may have had superior firepower. This type of warfare sacrificed the mobility of troops to ensure protection from constant bombardment from the opposing force. Trenches were typically dug so that soldiers could safely stand, with their faces protected by the mud wall. In the trenches, firing stations were established by placing boards over the muddy bottom. This helped establish secure footing. Thanks to Germany, over the course of the war, trench warfare evolved and became more advanced. Elaborate systems were created to strengthen the trenches. Specifically, they are dug in a zigzag fashion to contain explosions caused by cannons in one and slow the attack range of the other side. Barbed wire was usually placed in many layers in front of the machine gun posts. Despite these innovations, it was difficult to survive in the trenches due to the constant firing of machine guns and other artillery. Truthfully, trench warfare was poor strategy because when a side tried to destroy the opposing side by bombarding them with intense artillery, the other side knew they were being attacked because of the preliminary attack. This triggered an attack from the other side, and with both sides attacking, the land and environment suffered great destruction. The damaged terrain was difficult to traverse, so when a side needed to progress, many soldiers ended up dying. This made surprise attacks practically impossible. The use of trench warfare ceased when the tank was introduced, as it was invulnerable to the various forms of artillery.
The Schlieffen Plan was a battle strategy designed by German Army Chief Alfred von Schlieffen. The sole purpose of this plan was to encounter and defeat France in a quick way in order to prevent France's alliances from executing a combined attack on them. If plans succeeded, Russia and Britain would be unwilling to attack. It was vital that the French were to be defeated in a fast period of time to prevent the Russian army from gathering and mobilizing their forces. The German chief decided to use 90% of their army to attack the French, and the rest of their divisions were sent to hold the Russian army. The reason why only a small part of the German army was sent to hold the Russians is due to the reason that their army was too weak and unprepared. During this period, Russia was continually short on supplies. The plan was put into operation when some final battle adjustments were made on August 2, 1914. At this point, the Germans invaded Belgium and Luxembourg. Unexpectedly, the German army was held up by the Belgian army, and the Russians had to advance to East Prussia. This was due to their large numbers. British forces had reached France and Belgium very quickly too. The French army and the British army got together to battle the Germans. This move managed to split the German troops in half, which made it easier to battle and defeat them. However, the French fleet might have been defeated if not for the use of taxicabs that rushed 6,000 troops to the front line. Overall, the Schlieffen Plan was a failure.
These weak strategies and advanced technology led to a bloody stalemate which was broken using a multitude of newly developed weapons like flamethrowers, machine guns, tanks, grenades, and poison gas. These weapons drastically increased casualties and postponed the end of the war even longer. Poison gas, one of the deadliest weapons in World War I, caused approximately 1,200,000 casualties and led to the death of about 91,500 soldiers. Machine guns were very deadly when used defensively and led to even longer stalemates. Tanks, which were supposed to break enemy trench lines, weren't used properly and were often abandoned because they got stuck in muddy terrain. These new weapons were good in killing soldiers, but didn't help in moving the war forward.
Considering the facts we've presented so far, it should be quite easy to draw accurate conclusions. In regards to warfare, their strategies were all very similar, so winning almost became a matter of who had the most resources. Their weapons were incredibly destructive, not just to their enemy, but also to them. The use of advanced technology was part of why they had to use trenches as defense. However, those trenches did not convey efficient offense, resulting in stalemates. The nature of trenches makes it so that advancing is a slow, rigorous process, especially when considered that they are under constant bombardment. The ravaged landscape made it even difficult for both sides to progress. Together, all these factors resulted in a war with an extended duration and many casualties. By the end of this 4-year-long campaign, there were around 17 million deaths and more than 38 million casualties. The war resulted in the eradication of the idea that war is glorious in any fashion.
Despite all of the morbid misfortunes that occurred during this time, there were also beneficial things that came into being. Due to the drain of men during the war, there were less workers available for the governments to utilize. This actually made increase the number of women in the workforce, starting the movement towards gender equality in the workforce. The governments deceived their people in order to encourage military enlistment and increase national morale. When the people did discover the truth, they demanded more transparency from their governments, leading to more honest governments in the affected countries. Of course, with the technology used during the war, there were also advances in the scientific fields. Some of the technology was adapted for civilian use. The advances in medicine were procured. All in all, World War I was a bloody, casualty-ridden conflict that, while misunfortunate, taught us about the world in general.